トビデオ
When the anime industry graduated from the OVA era to the satellite TV era, it appeared that you could divide the types of anime that got aired in that space. The first type were the more acclaimed of the lot, mature series with a lot of focus on either action, heady philosophical themes, or a little bit of both. These are the types of anime from this era that get waxed nostalgically by the people who came of age in this time period, like yours truly. And then you have the second type, the otaku-fueled cultural detritus that delivered what the people wanted, which was cute anime girls, bouncing breasts, and plenty of panty shots to affix your gaze towards. Naturally, there was quite a bit of resentment from the former to the latter. If you're familiar with the phrase, the cancer that's killing the anime industry, you will remember such warfare in the forums. But like with most things, it was never that cut and dry. In fact, there was a lot more overlap between the two camps than you would think. Serious action shows were not immune to the allure of the female form, and anime with cutesy-wootsy anime girls were not immune to delving into heavy themes. It's all in the execution, really. There was no real rule set on how to make anime in either camp, and certainly no guidelines on what to do when you take a little bit from each. That being said, when we did get anime that attempted to be both a gripping action series with heavy themes and a lighthearted fanservice comedy, things could get a little strange. In what appears to be an alternate history medieval Japan, the country is being torn apart by seemingly endless civil wars. Within this violent environment, two classes of warriors emerge. The first are the samurai, the traditional honor-bound sword wielders of the old world order. And yet, they've shown to be completely outclassed by the second group of warriors, known as the senshi, or enlightened, warriors who specialize in the cutting-edge technology known as the gun. As we see in the opening scene, where an army of samurai attempt to rescue their lord from an enemy army of senshi, the former are no match for the latter, and they are forced to beat a hasty retreat. One of these samurai, Tiger of the Rearguard Yajiro Kojima, is unable to shake a small vanguard of senshi in the mountains, but in the middle of the chase, he encounters a beautiful young woman bathing in a nearby spring. The young woman hides Yajiro via her very ample bosom, allowing him to shake his pursuers. Yajiro soon learns that the woman is also a senshi named Rushina Tendo. But even though she carries both the title of senshi and a gun, Rushina's philosophy is one of pacifism. She refuses to take a human life and wishes to avoid all fights if necessary, as it would go against her life philosophy. The best way to win a fight is by removing an enemy's will to fight, that being the lesson Rushina took away from her time with her mentor Tenshi, the current empress of the land.
And the way to achieve that is that I must be unarmed.
Must be unarmed? Do you mean naked?
I must keep smiling. And I must hold the enemy close to my soft bosom.
Before you think that any conflict in this anime is going to be resolved like this,
I will release him in exchange for the ransom money.
I don't have any money, but I do have a smile.
you should know that Rushina is no pushover, because when push comes to shove, she will use that gun to dispatch and disarm her enemies, a skill she can do non-lethally thanks to her impeccable marksmanship and unique way of reloading. With the enemy Senshi beaten and his lord freed, Yajiro decides to accompany Rushina on her journeys throughout the country. But just as soon as they start traveling together, strange events begin popping up, such as the emergence of new types of weaponry powered by evil enlightenment, a shady masked benefactor who goes by the name Jester, and Rushina's kindly mentor Tenshi mysteriously putting a valuable bounty on her head. Debuting in the fall 2004 season, Grenadier is an anime that demanded your attention for its premise alone. A tall, beautiful woman with two big scoops who can gunsling with the best of them like she was Sharon Stone in The Quick and the Dead. And all while it's trying to tell a story about the struggle of sticking with your pacifist principles in a violent, Western-inspired world. Huh. Where have I heard that before? The premise alone was enough to get Grenadier some sustained attention in the anime fandom of the 2000s. Something about breasts and guns really do appeal to the id of the average otaku. But it's 20 years later and I have to wonder just how much of this can still hold up. A winning premise isn't enough. Even an anime that can draw the eyes like this one still needs to be executed well. Is Grenadier a sure shot that we can keep close to our chests, or does it miss the mark? Time to load my thoughts into the chamber and pull the trigger.
Since you're so unwilling to listen and downright rude, you don't get a smile.
Let's get one thing straight before we go on. Grenadier is not an ecchi title. Sure, Rushina's jugs are front and center throughout most of the show and are a key component in her style of combat, but that's not what this anime is about. No, this is actually a straightforward battle shonen anime, and the proof of that is through the manga it is adapting. Grenadier began life as a manga released on April 26, 2002 by one Sosuke Kaisei. It ran in the popular monthly Shonen Ace, and being that it was from there, basically destined it to get an anime tie-in. Most of the manga published there have mostly used it as a stepping stone for future anime adaptations, which we all know is the true vision of the story: sarcasm. Not really much to say about Sosuke Kaisei, sadly. At 7 volumes, Grenadier seemed like his biggest success, with the other works in his bibliography being one-shots or manga that ended earlier than his first. And he hasn't really done anything since 2009, so you have to wonder if he gracefully retired from the manga industry or completely bombed out of it. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. Grenadier was obviously going to get an anime adaptation, not just from it being an ace title, but also because the early to mid-aughts were a time of exponential growth in the anime industry thanks to satellite TV, the DVD boom, and the brand new overseas market that was currently growing and growing by the day. The supply of anime needed to keep up with the demand. Grenadier's anime production would be a joint effort between Studio Live and Group TAC. We've talked about Group TAC before and how they've been an unsung presence in the world of anime film. Studio Live, on the other hand, was a small animation studio founded by anime veteran Toyo Ashida as a production cooperation studio. And since they were so small, they didn't really have the facilities to make a full-length series. They would be assigned the key animation, while Group TAC would do everything else. Grenadier was also the directorial debut of Hiroshi Kojina. Kojina was an animator and character designer who had been working in the industry for about 20 years at that point. And when you have plugged away for that long with a murderous row of credits to your name, your butt's bound to hit the director's chair sooner or later. Unfortunately, going by the documentary special, all signs point to Grenadier being a very hectic and troubled production. Because Kojina lacked a lot of directorial experience, he ended up having to be the mediator between the production committee and the rest of the creative staff. This caused them to cede over a lot of directorial authority, and, as we'll soon see, that would end up negatively affecting the final product. As you could probably tell from the clips shown, there's a reason why the production committee was so willing to put rookies in charge of this anime. Not a lot of money on the line. Thanks to the power of digital animation, everything looks okay at first glance, with the environments looking vibrant and the colors feeling full. But then you press play and holy sheepshit, look at all those shortcuts. Not even just the ones you expect, like having a still frame shake to symbolize an explosion, but also the laughable ones, like turning a crowd of bandits into literal stick figures. And with the power of digital animation, we get a whole new frontier of shortcuts that include speeding up the footage to make the fights look more exciting. Believe me, on high definition TV sets, this effect will never not be distracting. In fact, the digital animation ended up causing a lot more problems for the staff than they originally thought. They thought CGI would save time for them, but it ended up costing them more in retrospect. There's even a horror story where they realized they have to redo an entire series of environments because they were all done on 2 different computer screens with different color settings.
フィルム時代はフィルムが基準だったので問題にはならなかった。デジタル彩色、撮影の時代の弊害とも言える。
Don't think for a minute that's what all the anime is like. The animators know where to make the magic happen. Rushina in particular always seems to be animated with a lot of care. The animators keep her on model and always make her fight scenes the visual spectacles they deserve. Character designs were done by Hideki Inoi, who, like Kojina, was also a rookie in his position. But he does a great job in making every character in this anime look distinct and memorable, from our heroes to the villains to even the common episodic townfolk. That's an impressive feat for a newbie. Though, the biggest fault this anime has is that it doesn't really have a distinct visual identity. I did say Kojima did seed a lot of his directorial vision and his experience when making this anime, and you can feel it. It's lacking in a signifier that would make it stand out from the pack. Kojima did have a sonic vision plan for this anime at the start. He wanted to really make the anime feel like an old western picture, make the environment swirling with dust and smoke, and most importantly, give the anime a film grain filter to make it look like an old John Ford movie. Sadly, that idea got shot down by the production committee, who believed that having an anime in a very old style would negatively impact future DVD sales.
これいつ作ったやつなのって言われるだろうねと。いわゆるすんごい古い作品を DVD を作り直しただけの作品だと思われかねない。
古い映像と思われるのはまだしも、放送時点で汚いと思われたら DVD は買ってもらえない。全く売れないとは言えないだろうが、かなり少なくなるだろう。
Kojima ended up giving in, and it resulted in Grenadier having direction that's competent but flavorless. And spoiler warning, it's not like that film grain filter would have caused those DVD sales to be any lower than they ended up being. The only real zest Grenadier has direction-wise is the title cards that pop up every now and then to either spell out an attack, emphasize the themes of a story, or just to act out as the punchline machine, which is something, I guess.
Bet you didn't see that coming. Couldn't even see my face.
The soundtrack, composed by Yasunori Iwasaki, does retain a lot of the Western tone that Kojima wanted to have, mainly through the liberal use of flamenco guitars.
You do realize, Rushina, that I still have one bullet left. And you don't have any.
Voice acting is also fine, I guess. I found no real standout performances on the Japanese end except Mikako Takahashi as Rushina, giving a performance that's gentle and caring, but still has the silk hiding steel feel to her voice.
王様だって人間だもの。怖かったらみんなに助けを求めたっていいんです。何？みんなあなたのことが好きなの。みんな力を貸してくれる。
English dub, meanwhile, is more of a mixed bag. Wendy Lee, who also directed and localized this dub, does an admirable job as Rushina, playing up her naivety but showing her firm resolve whenever she locks in.
A multiple firing gun designed for maximum damage. However, it's slow and it's not very accurate. Old man, you don't even know how to use a gun, do you?
The other cast members are just kinda there. This is a Media Blasters dub, where we have most of the actors, half of whom have been doing voices since the 80s, are just doing their shtick, making it feel a little standard for lack of a better term. But I think one of the few outright bad performances comes from Yuri Lowenthal of all people, where he is shredding the mic with one shrieky performance.
I know! That's why I acquired this power to protect us! This power that sacrifices my growth to evil! It is all for the survival of this kingdom, and this kingdom alone!
I don't want to be completely dogging on this anime because there's quite a bit to like about it. For one, the biggest point in its favor is that it's got plenty of great fight scenes. The climactic duels Rushina finds herself in throughout the series are all winners. She is usually going to be going up against another senshi that has a weapon or skill that seems to outgun her standard 6-shooter, and she has to figure out how she could take these people down with that gun without killing them. What results is fights that feel almost like a puzzle. Most of the fight blueprint is Rushina dodging moves trying to figure out a pattern to her enemy's fighting style, and the way she defeats her enemies can borderline on some straight up JoJo's Bizarre Adventure shenanigans.
How can that be? Even before I was able to pull the trigger, she blew the rod right out of my Rokumunsen, and with just one shot!
Even with the limited 12-episode run this anime has, the writers managed to put Rushina in a lot of interesting situations. Here's one where Rushina has to battle someone with bulletproof armor. Here's one where Rushina has to battle a giant tank robot. Here's one where Rushina has to battle underwater, and she has to figure out how to speed up her bullets while also trying not to run out of oxygen. But I did say at the beginning that this was not an edgy title. Well, if it isn't, then why does Rushina have those?
She's got huge tracts of land.
Okay, yes, fan service is a significant part of Grenadier. Not only do you have Rushina's perfectly round yabba dabba yabo spilling out in almost every shot, but Rushina's favorite activity in the world is bathing. In every episode, she has to have one scene where she's in a bath or a hot spring, and whenever that's not happening, she's wondering about when she can have her next bath or hot spring dip.
I'm so sweaty. I wish I could take a nice long bath.
Funny as the obvious setup for potential lasciviousness is, the fan service in this anime is relatively tame, to the point that Kojino recalled that the network asked if he wanted to spice it up a little more, considering this was airing on a late night time slot on satellite TV with fewer restrictions. Aside from the tops of Rushina's breast and her butt sometimes, we never really see anything since most of her body is strategically covered in those scenes. And outside of those bath scenes, most fanservice comes from your standard breast jiggle physics, some sexy battle damage in the fight scenes, which, hey, I'm down for, and innuendo in the dialogue, which I think was the product of the dub.
It got thicker all of a sudden.
What are you waiting for? Shoot her!
But she's unarmed, sir.
That's her strategy. You have no idea what she may be hiding in her bosom.
I think the furthest the fanservice goes in the anime is the two-parter with the battle tank mech. That fight has Rushina be dressed up in an outfit that resembles a sexy schoolgirl, and most of the tension in that fight comes from Rushina not being able to go all out because she lost her panties.
Time out, please!
What did you say? There is no such thing as a timeout during a battle!
I know that, but, you see, my panties got ripped off of me!
Your panties?
And before anyone asks, no, you still don't see anything. It almost seems like this anime is defined solely by its fights and fanservice. But no, a lot of the bones of Grenadier is carried by some strong character writing. Halfway through the series, Rushina and Yajiro get a third party member in the form of Mikon, a young girl whose special ability is making balloons, whether as weapons, means to escape, or just everyday use. She could have been an annoying load, but they really get a lot of mileage out of her balloons being an all-purpose bag of tricks, and allows her to earn her keep on the journey. I also like the character of Toka Kurenai, and not just for the obvious milfy reasons. A former member of the elite Senshi group, the Jutensen, she has set up a brothel/fortress that takes in women left homeless by the various wars going around the country. Not only does this keep them safe, but Toka's brothel also acts as a means to calm men down and take their minds off seeking glory through battle. It shows us that Rushina is not the only one affected by Empress Tenshi's philosophy.
The reason I started this pleasure palace is because I was following the teachings of Miss Tenshi. Sex appeal is the most effective way to strip men of their armor.
The star of the program, though, is still Rushina. At first glance, she does seem like a big-breasted version of the stock shonen tropes at the time. A wide-eyed idealist who wants to do good in the world, who can come off as a little dim and has a hearty appetite to boot. Hey, that fat has to go somewhere. But Grenadier does an excellent job in providing Rushina some depth through her devotion to her pacifism. Kojima said that he wanted Rushina to come off as a caring, motherly figure, which is helped by that body of hers. And wait, how old is she?
So how old are you? 16 years old?
Bullshit!
Rushina's pacifism is not just born from what her mentor Tenshi taught her, but also her travels on the road. Even in a time of war, she is overflowing with empathy and a love for humanity, and that informs everything she does, right down to how she has constructed her gun.
It's stuck! Is it broken or what? I don't think you'll be able to do it on your own. I have it set pretty tight. Huh? I did it deliberately, to be able to feel the weight of a life.
It's what gives us moments like how she can believably talk Mikon from taking revenge on the man who killed her parents. Rushina has utterly defeated this man and his gang. Mikon killing this man at his lowest point is probably not going to solve anything.
A man like you. A man like you. It's a waste to hold a grudge against.
Rushina's senshi skills and pacifism all comes together in the climax of the anime. We learn that the reason why Tenshi put that bounty out on Rushina's head is because it's not Tenshi at all. As the real Tenchi rots away in the dungeon, her courtly double has ascended the throne and has facilitated this warring states period as a means to go full Senator Armstrong and turn state power over to warlords, ushering in an era of social Darwinism. That double is Setsuna Umido. She and Rushuna received the exact same training and same position as doubles for Empress Tenchi. This means that her fighting skills, along with her bust size, are equal to that of Rushuna's. In other words, the final boss of Grenadier is Rushuna's evil twin, and it is the best fight in the whole series. Get your Equilibrium soundtrack out, Tay Diggs, because we've got gun kata. By the end, Rushuna realizes that she cannot take Setsuna in a straight fight since they are too identical to each other in skill. But she does have one thing that Setsuna doesn't have, and that's her ideal to win a fight by stripping others of their will to fight. And she does that quite literally, tearing off Setsuna's top, causing her to lose all her bullets and allow Rushuna to disarm her. The final battle is won by proving that Rushuna and Tenchi's ideals were the correct vision.
I don't understand how I could lose to you.
Yes, I wonder. But I'm sure if you just travel some, you will come to understand it better one day.
Rushuna is everything tying this anime story together in a beautiful bow. Now, if only that story was actually any good.
I guess you're right.
Now tell me if this sounds familiar to you all. A golden-haired gunslinger with a silly disposition and a steadfast vow of pacifism travels with a dark-haired cynic who has less reservations about killing and acts as an important foil. They soon find themselves involved in a plot spearheaded by an evil twin who scorns the gunslinger's pacifism and a nihilist with mysterious powers. And all of this is taking place in a Western-inspired world where violence is commonplace and the law of the gun is the law of the land.
Love and peace!
I was kind of expecting Grenadier to crib quite a few things from Trigun when I first watched it. Those comparisons have been floating around in the air ever since I was an otaku newbie. But I was caught off guard by how much they take from Nightoul's work. Are the first enemies we see Rushuna fight a gang of lowlives led by a big fat dude with a giant gun? Do we get to see Rushuna fight a mad scientist riding in a giant robot of his own creation? Is most of the back half of the series devoted to fights from an elite gang of hitmen who are subsequently killed for their failure by said nihilists? I was even playing around with giving this video the subtitle Trigun with Breast, even though I thought that might have been reductive. But it really is Trigun with Breast. It's also Trigun, but not very good. First, it's got tonal problems. Trigun was able to ease you into its shift in tone from goofy action comedy to dark sci-fi western, but Grenadier always has its lighthearted and dramatic moments mixing together like a bad salad. There's one episode where Rushuna is facing off against Teppa Aizen, another member of the Jutensen and an old childhood friend of hers who trained in the same Senshi Academy. He's also the anime's resident pervert character, which does lead to some admittedly clever writing where he's trying to suppress the urge to perv out because he needs to focus on his mission to kill Rushuna.
The incredible elasticity of her thighs! They feel so soft! I feel like I've died and gone to heaven! This is bad. I can't let my emotions take over.
However, this leads to a moment where we learn Teppa's backstory and how he was a victim of familial pressure and the very real physical abuse that came with it. Only to cut to a few seconds later to wacky pervert antics, and it is so awkward.
If you can't withstand hunger, what kind of fighter will you be? Is that any way for the heir to the Aizen lineage to behave?
Here. That's my clumsy Teppa.
Drama is also not only robbed by weird tonal problems, but also problems with this story's structure. A good story is in here, but it's assembled incorrectly. I don't know if this is a problem that was present in the original manga, or if it's a byproduct of the anime's hectic production, but the shoddy way some potentially interesting plot beats are delivered in Grenadier really make for an overall worse product. So I mentioned in a few paragraphs ago that the big twist is that the Empress Tenchi that placed the high bounty on Rushuna's head is not the real Empress Tenchi. In fact, every time we see her, this news is given subtle foreshadowing in how she speaks and reacts to news regarding Rushina. But then they reveal the twist too early at the halfway point by showing us the real Tenchi locked underground somewhere, while the fake Tenchi continues to run things. Now all the tension's gone, and we spend 5 episodes waiting for the cast to catch up to learn what the audience already knows. Maybe they thought the reveal of Setsuna was the bigger twist, but that doesn't work because she is never talked about in any capacity prior to her reveal. Kojina said he wanted to keep some aspects of Rushina's background unsaid so she would always have that air of mystery to her, but it doesn't work here when one of those unspoken details is key to a climactic twist. There's a similar problem with the character Jester. He's the mysterious masked benefactor who is secretly planting the seeds for his and Setsuna's ultimate plan to make Japan
Great again!
And he's always wearing the mask to keep his identity a secret. But eventually, that mask has to come off as the series nears its conclusion. So when Yajiro gets into a scrap with Jester, that mask gets damaged, and we soon learn his true identity. And it's...
I thought that you were really...
What is this?
I have no idea who this is.
Oh yeah, he's that rebel leader that Yajiro once followed that we maybe see once or twice for a few frames. Like Rushina with Setsuna, this guy is Yajiro's final boss, Kaizen Doshi. And like Setsuna, we don't feel the impact of this reveal because Yajiro never talked about him up until this point. He does mention that he was in the rebel army, but he never talks about why he was there in the first place or why he had great admiration for his leader, Kaizen Doshi, who he learns betrayed them in the end. As a result, a lot of Yajiro's anger towards Kaizen Doshi doesn't get felt because we don't get the full extent of their relationship as leader and follower. Speaking of Yajiro, if there is one character who represents so much of the series' wasted potential, it is him. Yajiro is not only our male point of view lead, but also Rushina's foil, the dark-haired swordsman with a more cynical outlook on humanity, traveling with the bright, bubbly, busty blonde with a gun. Surely this dynamic will result in some excellent friction between the two and allow them to experience growth into richer characters. But it doesn't happen that way. Early in the series, on seeing a group of Senshi torment a village of poor helpless villagers, Yajiro lets it slip that he hates all Senshi in front of Rushina, believing them to be sadistic monsters who fight using dishonorable weapons and tactics, unlike the samurai who fought with swords and codes of nobility. Let's ignore historically that the samurai were really keen on using guns as soon as they were introduced in the 16th century.
The Senshis think that just because they have guns and bullets, that they also have real power. They think that if they shoot, the people will kneel before them. That's why I hate the damn Senshi. Every one of them.
And you would think that tension would hang around for a couple of episodes, but no, that gets resolved as soon as Rushina saves the day and Yajiro makes a big, "You know, I learned something today" speech to her.
The lives and thoughts of all of those who I've killed. If I were to absorb them through my hands, I would become a monster. I think I was already starting to become one. Until the day I met you.
This has the side effect of relegating him to glorified bystander status up until his plot with Jester kicks in. Yajiro's wasted potential as a foil for Rushina ultimately exposes the major flaw of Grenadier. Rushina's pacifism is too perfect. One of the major reasons why Trigun is so good is because Vash's pacifism is always being put to the test. The villains of the story are constantly putting Vash in positions where his pacifism only makes things harder for him and the innocent people surrounding him, because they want him to forsake his beliefs. Rushina, on the other hand, never gets those kinds of struggles. At no point does she question her fate and what Tenshi taught her, or is forced to go against those ideals in service of a greater good. There is a moment where, in reaction to seeing someone who helped her get injured as an innocent bystander, she storms the castle looking for the perpetrator with her face twisted in rage and gun at the ready. The episode ends with Rushina ready to kill.
If you choose to stand in my way, I will show no mercy!
And as soon as the next episode starts, she composes herself, remembers what Tenchi taught her, and completely goes back to being the Rushina we all know and love. which is in line with her character, but that still shows us an unwillingness on the part of the writers to push Rushina to her limits. Vash the Stampede had a similar moment, and it's only when he has a gun pointed at the head of an enemy who's begging and screaming for his life that he comes to his senses. Rushina never again has that moment where she forgets her teachings or is forced to go against them. They are always the right path to take in battle, regardless of threat level. Another show Grenadier reminded me of was Steven Universe, a show with a similar pacifistic moral code. But despite its dubious place in internet culture, even in that show meant for kids, there was a far greater struggle in solving things the peaceful way, and sometimes trying to make friends with the enemy doesn't work in the end. But in Grenadier, Rushina's peaceful, non-violent path is shown to always be the correct moral decision in every situation, and no friction ever comes of it. It's why you have scenes where the ladies of the brothel, who are war widows and orphans mind you, are palling it up with the same group of bandits that said they were going to turn them into their own personal sex slave harem just a day earlier. All just because Rushina chose to humiliate them instead of killing them.
Everybody says the Gonzo of Tenmato is famous for his strength and big arms. Yeah!
Well, that's what they say. I'm a very serious warrior, so don't take it lightly. This is gonna be great. We'll make the whole place our own personal pleasure palace.
Because Rushina never has to truly affirm her ideals, it only makes Grenadier's themes shallow. Preachy even. Just like with everything else in this anime, from its direction to its fan service, the staff played it too safe to the anime's detriment. Whatever potential Grenadier could have had as an anime is held back by Kojina's inexperience as a director, leaving him and the rest of the staff beholden to the demands of a production team. That's what ultimately doomed it to failure. And unlike other low-selling titles that year such as Beck and Paranoia Agent, Grenadier never got that cult classic status. It was far too safe and basic to deserve such a position. Kojina would keep on directing anime, mostly forgotten shonen fare, as well as the most critically acclaimed shonen anime adaptation of the 2010s. Grenadier isn't completely terrible. Rushina is a likable, cute character, and the fights she is involved in are always interesting, but to get to that gun kata goal, you must wade through a sea of mid, and that's not worth it in the end. Grenadier has the looks of a shiny pistol, but really only has the power of a pop gun, and that's something I can say with my whole chest. Thank you all for watching. If you like this video or want to support this channel, please donate to my Patreon. Each dollar can give you early access to my videos as they come out, as well as keep the channel running a bit more smoothly. You can also subscribe to the channel, ring that bell for notifications, or just like this video. Either way, you'll be helping me out. That's all for now. See you for the next round of tapes.